I've seen drugs hidden in fake baby formula. I've seen cash stuffed into jacket linings. I've seen every trick in the book. That day, it was a student's turn to go through security. His suitcase was completely ordinary. He seemed like a perfectly normal guy, too. It went through the X-ray machine. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I didn't clear him. I told him to open the bag. Inside a hidden compartment, 3 stones were just sitting there. Gray and dusty. The kind you'd see literally anywhere. I stared at them for 3 seconds. I didn't say a single word. I grabbed my radio and said a single code word. 10 minutes later. 10 minutes later. Just 10 minutes later, the entire airport was on full lockdown. I've worked in customs for 11 years. This job, it's crushed all my unrealistic fantasies, but it's also sharpened my instincts to a razor's edge. I've seen a mother smuggling contraband in baby formula. Her eyes were full of pure despair. I've seen a businessman with stacks of dollars sewn into his jacket. His eyes were full of greed. I've even seen young kids who swallowed dozens of capsules, trying to mule drugs inside their own bodies. Their eyes were completely dead inside. 11 years, I've looked into way too many eyes. And I've trained myself to read exactly what they're hiding. Today, I was on shift at counter number 6, international arrivals in Terminal 3. 3 in the afternoon, the crowd was moving steadily. A young guy pushing a silver suitcase walked right up to my counter. Just a very ordinary looking kid. White t-shirt, blue jeans, wearing a pair of thick black glasses. Looked exactly like a student. He handed me his passport. The cover was brand new. Flipped it open. Gao Yuan, 21 years old, returning from studying abroad in country H. Welcome home. I stamped his passport. I handed it back to him. His hands were perfectly steady. His fingernails were neatly trimmed. Thank you. He gave a polite smile, pushed his bag, and started walking toward the conveyor belt. Hold on a second, I said. Gao Yuan stopped in his tracks, and looked back at me. His eyes showed just the right amount of confusion. Sir, I need to run your bag through the X-ray machine. Okay, he nodded, not a hint of annoyance. He even lifted the bag onto the belt himself. It was all just too perfect. Too normal. I kept my eyes glued to the monitor. The X-ray scanned through the suitcase. Clothes, books, a few packs of local snacks, an electric razor. Everything was crystal clear, neatly packed. No weird densities, no suspicious shapes at all. Xiao Li, my colleague running the X-ray, flashed me the all-clear sign. But I didn't move. My eyes were still locked on Gao Yuan's face. He just stood right there. He waited quietly, a faint smile on his face. But his left thumb was unconsciously, rapidly rubbing against the second joint of his index finger. It was a classic subconscious tic, using small, repetitive movements to ease extreme inner tension. What was he so nervous about? It was just a perfectly normal suitcase. Sir, your bag is cleared. You can head out now, Xiao Li chimed in from the side. Gao Yuan gave me a nod and reached for his luggage. Open it. My voice wasn't loud, but it was crystal clear. Xiao Li froze for a second. Gao Yuan's hand paused right in midair. The smile on his face stiffened for a split second, but he quickly covered it up. Officer, didn't you just say I was cleared? His tone was as calm as ever, but that left thumb stopped dead. His muscles tightened. Routine inspection. Please cooperate. I looked him dead in the eye and repeated myself. Open the bag. Gao Yuan held my gaze for 3 seconds. Then he dropped his gaze. All right. He hauled the suitcase onto the inspection table and punched in the code. It clicked open. The inside was exactly like the man himself. Neat and spotless. His clothes were folded into perfect squares, sealed in vacuum bags, and his books were carefully wrapped in covers. They were stacked neatly in the corner. I pulled on my gloves and began the search, pulling things out one by one. I flipped through every single book. Nothing. Nearby, a few passengers were starting to mutter complaints, thinking I was making a huge deal out of nothing and wasting everyone's time. Even Xiao Li looked embarrassed, probably wondering if I was just being paranoid today. That faint, barely there smirk even crept back onto Gao Yuan's face. A smile of pure relief. I ignored all of them. I completely emptied the suitcase. And then, I used my knuckles to tap lightly against the bottom lining of the case. Thud. The sound was heavy and muffled. I looked up, locking eyes with Gao Yuan. The smirk on his face completely vanished, replaced by a dead, ghostly pale. Open it, I demanded. What? The hidden compartment? Gao Yuan's Adam's apple bobbed nervously. I didn't know this suitcase had a false bottom. His voice was starting to crack. I'm only going to ask one more time. Open it. I pulled a multi-tool screwdriver from beneath the counter. Gao Yuan stared at it. His lips started to tremble. He didn't move an inch. I was done playing games. I took the flathead of the screwdriver. I slipped it into the gap in the lining and gave it a hard pry. Click. I pried the lining panel open just a crack. A faint smell, a mix of dirt and machine oil, drifted out. I tore off the entire lining panel. Inside the hidden compartment of the suitcase, was lined with a thick layer of foam, and resting on that foam were 3 precisely cut grooves. Inside those grooves lay 3 stones. They were dusty gray, with rough, irregular edges. They looked just like ordinary pebbles you could pick up by any riverbank. Xiao Li leaned in for a look, looking completely baffled. Stones? All this, just for some rocks? The passengers around us started buzzing with whispers. Gao Yuan looked like he had completely collapsed, leaning heavily against the inspection counter. Gasping for air, he stared at those 3 stones. His eyes filled with absolute terror. I ignored him. All my attention was locked onto those 3 stones. I stared at them for 3 seconds. Then, I reached out and picked one up. The stone felt ice cold in my hand. It was unusually heavy, with a rough surface, and even had bits of dried mud clinging to it. I held it right up to my eyes, tilting it at different angles under the glaring lights of the inspection counter. At one very specific, tiny angle, on the surface of the stone, a flash almost invisible to the naked eye. A streak of purple light thinner than a strand of hair flickered just for a second. My heart immediately sank. I set the stone down without saying a single word. I grabbed the walkie-talkie clipped to my shoulder, gripped it tight, and pressed the talk button. The chaotic noise of the entire inspection hall seemed to completely fade away in that moment. My voice was rock steady, not a single tremor. I spoke a coded phrase that only Captain Zhang Lei and I understood. Counter 6. The stones are extremely hard. There was dead silence on the radio for 1 second. Then, Captain Zhang Lei's voice came through, sharp and decisive. Copy that. 10 minutes later, the entirety of Terminal 3 had all of its entrances and exits put on complete lockdown. Ear-piercing sirens blared through the building. The moment those alarms went off, the entire inspection hall erupted into absolute chaos. Passengers were screaming, kids were crying, and the urgent evacuation announcements blaring over the speakers made it a total madhouse. Gao Yuan slumped down onto the floor, his face completely drained of color. I ignored him. The very first thing I did was shove those 3 stones right back into the hidden compartment. I covered them with the lining panel, slammed the suitcase shut, and slapped a maximum security seal right onto the case. Just as I finished doing that, fully armed airport SWAT teams rushed in and threw up police tape everywhere. Everyone, freeze, stay right where you are. The SWAT team's roar drowned out everything else. Captain Zhang Lei, along with 2 colleagues from the Customs Anti-Smuggling Bureau, strode toward me. His expression was more serious than I had ever seen. The veins on his forehead were bulging. Zhuang Hai, status. He didn't waste a single word. Target, Gao Yuan, male, 21 years old, a returning exchange student from country H. I pointed at Gao Yuan, who was slumped on the ground. Suspected contraband, 3 rocks hidden in the lining of his suitcase. I pointed to that silver suitcase. I used the phrase, the rocks are very hard. Zhang Lei's pupils suddenly shrank. The rocks are very hard. This code phrase, in the internal customs system, corresponds to the highest level of national security threat. An alarm of this level, once triggered, means there is a potential smuggling operation capable of shaking the very foundation of our national interests. Its clearance level is already way beyond customs jurisdiction. It needs to be reported to the Ministry of State Security immediately, and they have to take over. Zhang Lei and I have worked together for 7 years. This code word, I have never used it once. He knows I wouldn't joke about something like this. Are you sure? Zhang Lei's voice was kept very low. 100%, I replied. He didn't ask anything else. He immediately picked up his encrypted phone and dialed a number. This is Zhang Lei from Capital Airport Customs. Initiate protocol Bedrock. Protocol. Target spotted at inspection desk number 6, Terminal 3. Requesting immediate backup from state security. Hanging up the phone, the 2 anti-smuggling officers had already dragged Gao Yuan up from the floor and slapped cuffs on him. That silver suitcase was placed into a specially made metal bomb-proof container. Everything was moving at a tense but highly efficient pace. In less than 20 minutes, 3 black sedan cars drove straight through the airport's special access lane, all the way to tarmac number 7. A group of people wearing black suits stepped out of the cars. They had an intimidating presence. Leading them was a woman. She looked to be around 30 years old, with short hair and eyes as sharp as knives. She wasn't wearing any ID badge, but the moment she appeared, even the head of airport security stepped forward and saluted her. She walked straight up to Zhang Lei. Ministry of State Security, Xiao Wenjun, lead investigator for this incident. Her voice was just like her eyes, cold and hard. Customs, Zhang Lei, where are the suspect and the evidence? Xiao Wenjun asked. Zhang Lei pointed at Gao Yuan, who had already been shoved into the armored SWAT vehicle, and at the metal container being kept isolated. Who made the initial discovery? Xiao Wenjun's gaze swept over us. It was me. I stepped forward. Xiao Wenjun's eyes lingered on me for a few seconds, like she was scanning me with an X-ray. Walk me through it. I broke down the entire sequence, from the moment Gao Yuan stepped up to my counter, to the second I found the stones. I gave a clear, concise rundown, including my read on his micro-expressions. And my physical check of the suitcase. You pried open the hidden compartment. Found the stones. Xiao Wenjun cut me off. And then you just went ahead and escalated it to a national security threat. Yes. And what exactly made you decide that 3 perfectly ordinary rocks were a threat to national security? Gut instinct, I said. Gut instinct. A cold, cynical smile crept across Xiao Wenjun's face, dripping with absolute contempt. Officer Zhuang, is that so? Do you have any idea that because of your little gut instinct, the entire capital airport has been completely shut down? Do you have any idea of the financial damage this will cause? Do you know how many international flights are being diverted to other cities right now? Do you have any clue what kind of consequences you'll face if this whole thing turns out to be a false alarm? The barrage of questions hit me like a spray of bullets. I didn't flinch. I stared right back into her eyes. I know, you're betting your entire career and your future on a gut feeling. I'm not betting on anything. I enunciated every single word, because I saw the purple glow. Purple glow? Xiao Wenjun furrowed her brow. Catching the glare of the spotlight at just the right angle, a thin streak of purple flashed across the surface of the stone. It was incredibly faint, but I saw it. I'm telling the absolute truth. And that is the real reason I triggered a maximum security alert. 3 years ago, my mentor, former Chief Lin Haidong, was killed in action during a border anti-smuggling op. What they intercepted that day was a brand new type of contraband disguised as ordinary raw ore. Later, during a classified internal debrief, I read the specs on that contraband. When exposed to a very specific light source, its core material emits a highly distinct, purple luminescent glow. After that incident, the phrase, "the stone is hard," was coined as a code word, and the Operation Bedrock contingency plan behind it was officially put into effect. The number of people who know about this specific detail in the entire customs database is less than 5. Zhang Lei is one of those 5. The second he heard the words, purple glow, the color drained right out of his face. But Xiao Wenjun clearly had no idea about any of this classified intel. She let out a cold, mocking laugh. A purple glow? Officer Zhuang, have you been reading too many spy novels or something? She waved her hand dismissively. Take the evidence down to the quarantine lab. Have the tech team run an analysis immediately. And haul the suspect into the interrogation room. I'm interrogating him myself. Yes, ma'am. Her team immediately sprang into action. Captain Zhang. Xiao Wenjun turned to face Zhang Lei. I need to commandeer one of your customs interrogation rooms. Oh, and as for this Officer Zhuang, before I reach my conclusion, he cannot leave the airport. He must be ready to cooperate with the investigation at any time. With that said, she turned on her heel and walked away. Her high heels struck the ground, making sharp, forceful clicking sounds. Zhang Lei patted me on the shoulder. His eyes were filled with mixed emotions. Zhuang Hai, you, Captain, I swear on this uniform of mine. I interrupted him. Zhang Lei let out a heavy sigh and didn't say another word. The following few hours were pure, agonizing torture. I was placed in a tiny break room, with 2 SWAT officers standing guard right outside the door. I couldn't check my phone. I had zero contact with the outside world. Time dragged on, minute by agonizing minute. Outside the window, night fell. Terminal 3 was still on full lockdown. The tarmac was completely empty. Locked down. It was as quiet as a ghost town. Locked down, utterly locked down. I could only imagine the absolute chaos brewing out there right now. Yet, my heart felt unusually calm. I trusted my own eyes. And more importantly, I trusted my mentor. It wasn't until midnight that the break room door was slammed open. Xiao Wenjun stormed into the room. Her face was even colder than before, and her eyes burned with suppressed fury. She slammed a folder down onto the table right in front of me. Officer Zhuang, you'd better give me a damn good explanation. I picked up the file. It was the preliminary test report from the tech team. In the conclusion section, the bold black letters absolutely stung my eyes. Submitted sample A8, chemical composition test, rad radiation component test, radiation check, no abnormalities found whatsoever. The primary component is granite. Conclusion, just ordinary rocks. My brain suddenly started ringing. How is that even possible? My team interrogated Gao Yuan for 8 solid hours. Xiao Wenjun's voice was as sharp as broken glass. From start to finish, he only had one thing to say. That those were just some rocks he picked up by a river while vacationing in Country H. He thought they looked nice, so he brought them back as souvenirs. His social connections, his family background. We dug through everything, inside and out. He is completely squeaky clean. And right now, all the evidence is pointing to one single thing. Xiao Wenjun leaned in close, planting both hands firmly on the table. She locked onto me with a deadly stare. You are lying. No, I'm not. My voice came out completely hoarse. What about the purple light? Our tech team used the absolute best equipment in the country and scanned those 3 rocks inside out 7 times over. They didn't find a single damn trace of purple anything. Zhuang Hai, she was practically screaming at me now. I am giving you exactly 12 hours. Starting right now, until 12 noon tomorrow, you either you show me hard proof that those 3 stones are a threat to national security, or you can expect a court-martial. Because of your so-called intuition and purple light, we just blew our best shot at catching the real big fish. Now, get your ass into solitary, and think real hard about how to prove you're not just some grandstanding lunatic. Her chest heaved violently. She was clearly absolutely furious. 2 tactical officers walked in, grabbing me by both arms. I didn't fight back. My mind was a complete mess. Impossible. I swear I saw it. That purple light. It looked exactly like the photos from the internal briefing 3 years ago. Exactly the same. What the hell went wrong? I was thrown into a windowless solitary cell. The only thing in there was a steel bed. I sat down, forcing myself to calm down. I replayed everything that happened this afternoon over and over in my head. Gao Yuan. His expressions, his movements. Wait, his left hand, the way he was rubbing his index finger. Suddenly, it hit me. The exact moment we pried open the hidden compartment and saw those stones. His anxiety was through the roof. But the second I picked up the stone and shined my tactical flashlight on it, his expression. Besides the fear, there seemed to be a hint of something else. What was it? I squeezed my eyes shut, frantically digging through my memory for that exact look. That's it. It was relief. The moment he saw me using a standard flashlight on the stone and finding absolutely nothing. His expression, just for a split second, was pure relief. What was he so glad about? He was glad I was using the wrong light. I shot up from the bed, rushed to the door, and started pounding on the steel grate. Open up. I need to see Xiao Wenjun. I need to re-examine the evidence. I know what went wrong. The heavy door swung open. Standing right there in the doorway was Captain Zhang Lei. He looked completely exhausted. His eyes were bloodshot. He obviously hadn't slept a wink. Captain, come with me. He cut me off, turning on his heel. I followed right behind him, down the long hallway. I've seen the tech team's report. Zhang Lei's voice was incredibly heavy. Zhuang Hai, this whole mess has blown up way out of proportion. Captain, I am not lying. I pleaded desperately. The problem isn't the stones. It's the light. What light? The internal briefing about what happened to my mentor. I've watched it over a dozen times. The report mentioned one thing. That kind of purple glow doesn't appear under just any light source. It only reacts to an extremely specific, narrow-band light source. That exact frequency band was a classified optical frequency band, one our country had just successfully tested at the time. Standard testing equipment couldn't possibly be tuned to those parameters. Zhang Lei stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around, staring me dead in the eye. How certain are you? 100%, I said without a single ounce of hesitation. Zhang Lei fell silent for a few seconds, then pulled out his phone and dialed that encrypted number again. This time, he didn't say much. He just repeated my words. Word for word. The other end of the line seemed to fall silent as well. Give him 1 hour. After a long pause, Xiao Wenjun's icy voice came through the phone. I'll wait for him in the isolation lab. Inside the isolation lab, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. 3 stones lay completely still on the pristine white operating table. A few technicians in white lab coats stood off to the side. The way they looked at me was full of suspicion and pure disgust. Xiao Wenjun stood with her arms crossed, hiding in the shadows of the corner. Inspector Zhuang, you may begin. Her tone was completely dead and devoid of emotion. I need a tunable laser emitter with a wavelength range that covers the extreme ultraviolet band, I said. One of the technicians let out a scoff. Kid, do you even know what you're talking about? Extreme ultraviolet? You think we're in some sci-fi movie lab? Do exactly as he says. Xiao Wenjun ordered coldly. Even though the technician looked completely annoyed, he still went to set it up. It didn't take long before a highly precise instrument was wheeled over. This is the best equipment we have clearance for. The most advanced stuff we've got. The technician snapped irritably. The lowest wavelength it can hit is 200 nanometers. That should be enough for you, right? I just nodded, and walked right up to the machine. Turn off all the standard lights in the lab. Switch to full blackout mode. The lights clicked off, one by one, plunging the entire lab into pitch darkness. The only thing left was the eerie green glow from the screen, washing over my face. Took a deep breath, and started adjusting the wavelength. Starting from the visible light spectrum at 760 nanometers. I slowly dialed it down. Lower and lower. Red light, orange light, yellow light, green light. The 3 stones resting on the table didn't change at all. They still looked like dull, gray rocks. Cold sweat started forming on my forehead. The technician's mocking laughter was getting louder and clearer. See? I told you so. Nothing but smoke and mirrors. Xiao Wenjun's eyebrows pulled together in a tight frown. Her patience was clearly running out. But I completely ignored them. Keep going down. 400 nanometers. 300 nanometers. Entering the ultraviolet band. 250 nanometers. Officer Zhuang, your time is running out. Xiao Wenjun's voice sounded like a death sentence. I gritted my teeth, my fingers steadily turning the dial. When the wavelength dial pointed precisely to a specific mark. 217 nanometers. This was the exact number. 3 years ago, in the old chief's report, that fleeting figure labeled as an experimental parameter. That number. My hand stopped. I looked up at the console. A miracle happened. Under the illumination of that specific ultraviolet beam, the 3 perfectly ordinary-looking stones seemed to come alive. Inside them, a light flared up. Countless slender, intricate and dazzling purple filaments of light, like a galaxy of stars, slowly flowed within the stones, weaving into an unimaginably complex 3-dimensional network. Those weren't stones. They were made of pure light. A miniature universe. The entire testing room fell dead silent in an instant. Everyone was so captivated by this magnificent yet bizarre sight that they were shocked speechless. Those few technicians had their mouths hanging wide open, eyes practically popping out of their heads. Oh my god, what the hell is this? From the corner, Xiao Wenjun suddenly stepped out of the shadows. She rushed over to the console, staring at the 3 stones that seemed to have come to life, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. She snapped her head around and glared at me. In her eyes there was no longer the contempt and mockery from before. Instead, it was replaced by utter shock and a trace of fear. How did you know about this frequency band? For the very first time, her voice carried a slight tremble. This is a top-tier national optical secret. Ring, ring. The encrypted phone in her pocket started ringing frantically at that exact moment. Startled as if waking from a dream, Xiao Wenjun scrambled to answer the call. Speak. Team leader Xiao, Gao Yuan cracked. On the other end of the line was the urgent voice of a colleague from the interrogation team. Just now, he completely broke down. He said, he was recruited by an organization in country H. They gave him a massive amount of money to bring 3 origin stones back to the country. He said, his contact told him that these origin stones are absolutely safe. No instrument can detect it. Unless you use a wavelength of 217 nanometers of classified light to illuminate it. He also said, the drop-off location is right at. Before the guy from interrogation could even finish, Xiao Wenjun's phone went smack, dropping right onto the floor. Every ounce of color instantly drained from her face. She finally understood. The reason I knew about this top-secret frequency band that even she had no clue about wasn't because my security clearance was high enough. It was because this exact piece of intel was bought 3 years ago, paid for with my mentor's life. And she, just a moment ago, almost took the hero who traded his life for this very clue. Treated him like a lunatic and sent him off to a military court. The entire quarantine testing room fell so dead silent that we could hear each other's heartbeats. The purple galaxy flowing inside those 3 stones looked like a ghost from another world, mocking human ignorance. Xiao Wenjun's face shifted from a pale white to a deathly gray, and then flushed into a complicated, deep red. It was shame. It was lingering fear and a pure physical reaction to extreme shock. She didn't even try to pick up the dropped phone. Zhang Lei had already dashed over, snatched up the phone, and roared into the receiver. Where is the drop-off location? The National Digital Library, 3rd floor, Zone C, locker number 307. Drop-off time, 3 o'clock this afternoon. We had less than 2 hours left. Zhang Lei hung up the phone and looked over at Xiao Wenjun. And Xiao Wenjun, she was staring right at me. The look in her eyes was more complicated than anything I had ever seen. It held intense scrutiny, sheer disbelief, deep remorse, and even a trace of, Officer Zhuang, she started, her voice totally dry. For my rudeness and pure arrogance earlier, I sincerely apologize to you. She stood up perfectly straight, and gave me a deeply formal bow. A high-ranking director from the Ministry of State Security, bowing to a low-level customs officer. The technicians and anti-smuggling colleagues next to us were completely dumbfounded. I didn't back away. I calmly accepted her apology. Because I knew, she wasn't apologizing to me. She was apologizing to the man who traded his life for this top-secret intel 3 years ago. My mentor, Lin Haidong. Now is not the time for this, I finally said, keeping my tone dead calm. We only have 1 hour and 50 minutes left. That single sentence snapped Xiao Wenjun right out of her emotional state. Her eyes instantly turned as sharp as a knife again. You're absolutely right. She spun around, and fiercely started barking out orders. Tech team, immediately take those 3 source stones, and seal them inside maximum security energy containment cases for transport. Captain Zhang, I need your most elite anti-smuggling officers right now to coordinate with our operation. Comms team, get me the City Traffic Bureau's Central Command. I want an absolute green corridor from the airport all the way to the National Digital Library. I want every single traffic light along the route turned green. Strike team, listen up. Assemble downstairs within the minute. Destination, the National Digital Library. Yes, everyone shouted in unison. Their earlier exhaustion and doubts vanished entirely, replaced by the adrenaline of an impending battle. And you, Xiao Wenjun finally turned her intense gaze to me. Comrade Zhuang Hai, in accordance with the special provisions of the national security law, I am now acting in my official capacity as the captain of the Ministry of State Security's Aegis Task Force. I am officially drafting you as a special consultant to our team. From this moment on, you will be involved in our entire operation. Until this crisis is fully resolved, your input will directly influence my final decisions. Do you have any questions? No, I replied firmly. Good, move out. 5 minutes later, a special convoy consisting of 3 black Hongqi sedans and 2 customs tactical vehicles blared their sirens at the highest alert level. Like a dark arrow. Blared their sirens at the highest alert level. Like a dark arrow. It roared out from the airport's VIP lane. I sat in the backseat of the middle sedan. On my left was Xiao Wenjun. On my right was Captain Zhang Lei. The atmosphere inside the car was so heavy, it was suffocating. Xiao Wenjun held an encrypted tablet, swiping rapidly through something on the screen. Gao Yuan has confessed to everything, she said, without even looking up. He is nothing but a courier. A low-level pawn bought off with cash. The organization that recruited him goes by the codename ARC. It is a completely unknown and deeply mysterious transnational syndicate. Their sole purpose is to do whatever it takes to smuggle these source stones right into our country. Source stones, Zhang Lei muttered under his breath. What the hell are these things? We have no idea. Xiao Wenjun shook her head. For the very first time, a look of pure bewilderment crossed her face. There is absolutely nothing in the national security database about these source stones. It is like they just materialized out of thin air. Gao Yuan said that the people from the ARC syndicate told him that these stones are a gift from heaven, one that could completely flip the global balance of power. The divine secret. I watched the city streets blur past the window. That gnawing anxiety in my chest was only getting stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that this whole thing is way bigger than just a simple smuggling job. Whatever the hell it is. I finally spoke up, shattering the dead silence in the car. We absolutely cannot let it fall into the contact's hands. Xiao Wenjun looked up, catching my eye. There was a glimmer of approval in her gaze. Exactly. She snapped her tablet shut. I've already triggered the highest level capture protocol. The entire National Digital Library is now an inescapable trap set just for our guy. If he even dares to show his face. The entire National Digital Library is now an inescapable trap set just for our guy. If he dares to show up, I promise you, he won't even make it out of here alive. The convoy tore down the road like lightning. What should have been an over an hour drive, thanks to full traffic control, was slashed down to just 30 minutes. At 2:10 in the afternoon, the convoy pulled a flawless drift, sliding to a smooth halt at the library's side entrance. The doors flew open. Dozens of operatives in black combat gear, heavily armed special agents from national security, moved like hunting cheetahs. They slipped out of the vehicles without a sound, instantly securing every tactical vantage point. Zhang Lei and his anti-smuggling unit locked down all the exits. Zhuang Hai, with me, Xiao Wenjun ordered. She led me, through a hidden staff corridor, straight into the library's central security control room. Inside, over a dozen tech specialists were already on high alert, ready for action. On the wall, a massive array of joined screens displayed live feeds from hundreds of security cameras across the building. Report. All entrances and exits are fully secured. Report. Camera 3C. Third floor, Sector C is clear. Camera 3C, all unauthorized personnel have been evacuated. Camera 3C. Report. Sniper team is in position. Clear lines of sight. Through the earpiece, reports from the tactical teams kept pouring in. Xiao Wenjun stood before the screens, her eyes as cold as solid ice. Now, we just wait for the fish to take the bait. She turned her head, looking right at me. Zhuang Hai, for this next part, I'm going to need to borrow your eyes. Out of everyone in this room, you are the only one who has actually seen the ghost in person. I need your help to scan through this massive crowd and drag that hidden ghost out into the light. I gave a firm nod. My eyes locked dead onto the monitors, focusing right on the staircase leading up to Sector C on the 3rd floor. I knew it. A silent war was about to begin. Time is ticking away, second by second. I know, a silent war is about to break out. Time is ticking away, second by second. Inside the surveillance room, it's so quiet you can only hear the humming of the machines. Everyone's nerves are stretched tight like a fully drawn bow. The digital clock on the wall, with its bright red numbers like a ticking time bomb, is pounding against everyone's heart. The scheduled meeting time has arrived, but, on the surveillance monitors, the entrance to the third floor zone is completely empty. There's no one there at all. The target hasn't shown up. All units, stay sharp. Do not drop your guard. Xiao Wenjun orders into the microphone, her voice deep and steady. You can't see a single trace of panic on her face, but her knuckles, turning pale from gripping the walkie-talkie so hard, betray the intense anxiety she's hiding. I'm staring fixedly at the screen too, my mind racing. How? Will they show up? Will it be an agent in a sharp suit? Or an ordinary-looking janitor? Or, will they not show up in person at all, but instead remotely control some clueless civilian? To make the drop, I put myself in the shoes of that mysterious contact, thinking through every possible scenario. Time keeps dragging on. 15, 10, still, absolutely no movement. The atmosphere in the surveillance room is starting to get restless. Chief Xiao, do you think they might just not show up? A young analyst can't help but ask in a whisper. Shut up. Xiao Wenjun cuts him off coldly. Gao Yuan's capture was carried out entirely inside the airport. The news absolutely did not leak. They have no idea that the courier has been compromised. They will definitely come. For a professional intelligence agency, punctuality is the most basic requirement. Unless, she doesn't finish her sentence. But I know exactly what she means. Unless, their idea of punctuality, and our idea of punctuality, not the same thing at all. My eyes sweep across the big screen, showing the library's first floor lobby. People are coming and going, bustling with life. There are white-haired elderly people. There are energetic young students. The footage of the library's first floor lobby. People coming and going, bustling with activity. There are white-haired elderly people. There are energetic young students. There are parents bringing their kids to read. Everything was so normal. September 14th, 2025, at 14:23, so full of everyday life. 14:23. If I were the contact, what would I do? I definitely wouldn't sneak straight up to the third floor right at the scheduled time. That's way too obvious. I'd show up way before the meeting time, and walk right into the library just like an ordinary reader. I'd find a quiet little corner, sit down, and just read, like a single drop of water, blending perfectly into the ocean. And then, only after making absolutely sure the area was totally safe, would I quietly slip away to the meeting spot. In fact, he might already be right here in this very building. Chief Xiao, I suddenly blurted out, pull up all the security feeds, and rewind them to the 10 minutes right before 1500 hours. Focus specifically on everyone between 1450 and 1500 hours, any single male who walked into the library during that time window. Xiao Wenjun froze for a second, but snapped right back to reality. Hurry, do exactly as he says. The techs immediately got to work. Hundreds of camera feeds on the massive screen started rewinding at lightning speed. The timestamps froze exactly at 1450. The footage started playing at 8 times speed. Figure after figure walking through the library doors flashed rapidly across the screen. Stop. I pointed dead at one of the split screens. It was an obscure little camera in the corner, and the face it caught was a bit blurry. Right there in the frame, a man was walking right through the security gates at the entrance. Average build, probably somewhere in his 40s or 50s, wearing a gray jacket and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. And in his hand, he was holding a German copy of Faust. He just looked exactly like some university professor or scholar coming in to do research. Enhance his facial features. Xiao Wenjun barked the order immediately. The image zoomed in. After some quick digital sharpening, the man's face finally became clear. It was an incredibly ordinary face, not a single standout feature. The image zoomed in again, and after some digital sharpening, the man's face finally became clear. Just an incredibly ordinary face, absolutely zero standout features. The exact kind of guy you could toss into a crowd, and you'd never be able to pick him out again. Run it. Run a facial recognition match, right now. I want every single file you have on him. Yes ma'am. The Ministry of State Security's database kicked into overdrive. Just seconds later, we had a hit. Reporting in, Chief. We found him. Qian Wenbo, 52 years old, professor in the German department at Capital University. Doctoral advisor. His family background and social connections are all completely clean. Nothing suspicious at all. He has a long-term library card for the National Digital Library registered under his name. He comes here 2 to 3 times a week. His routine is incredibly regular. A perfect, absolutely flawless identity. Where is he? Xiao Wenjun asked. Found him. His last known location is the second floor social sciences reading area, right near bookshelf K. Put his live surveillance feed up on the main screen for me. The feed switched over. On the main screen, it clearly showed the professor named Qian Wenbo. He was sitting at a table right by the window, quietly reading a book. The sunlight filtered through the glass, bathing him in a glow that looked so peaceful, so incredibly serene. Right in front of him sat a steaming cup of fresh tea. Everything was as perfect as a painting. Way too perfect. So perfect that it felt like a disguise. There's something wrong with him, I said decisively. Your reasoning? Xiao Wenjun looked straight at me. Look at his hands. I pointed right at the screen. A scholar who spends all his time reading, his fingers. What should they look like? From constantly flipping pages, the pads of the index finger and thumb would show signs of long-term friction, leaving thin, smooth calluses. But look closely at his hands. On the screen, Tian Wenbo was just lifting his cup to take a sip. His fingers were long, slender, and totally spotless. The fingertips were plump, the skin completely smooth. There wasn't a single trace of a callus. Those weren't the hands of a scholar. Those were long, slender, spotless hands with plump fingertips and smooth skin without a single trace of calluses. Those were absolutely not a scholar's hands. They were hands that almost never touched paper books, hands that probably barely even held a pen. Plus, that book right in front of him, Faust. From the moment he sat down until now, nearly 20 minutes had passed, and the book hadn't been flipped once. Xiao Wenjun's pupils shrank instantly. Sniper team, listen up. She grabbed her walkie-talkie, her voice absolutely ice-cold. Lock onto the target at seat K17, in the second-floor social sciences reading area. If he makes any sudden moves, I authorize you to shoot to kill. Right at that moment, on the surveillance feed, the man named Tian Wenbo seemed to sense something. He closed his book and stood up. He adjusted his glasses, glanced down at his watch, and then he took a step forward, unhurried and calm, heading toward the stairwell. The direction he was going was exactly the third floor. The entire surveillance room held its breath. The fish was finally about to take the bait. Tian Wenbo's steps were steady. His posture was relaxed, looking just like an ordinary reader who got tired and wanted to head upstairs for a change of scenery. Step by step, he walked up the stairs. His figure vanished at the corner leading from the second to the third floor. The very next second, on the surveillance feed for the third floor stairwell, his figure appeared. He had reached the third floor. This was Zone C, right at the boundary between the reading room and the storage area. According to their evacuation plan, this place should be completely deserted right now. Tian Wenbo stood in place, looking around. His eyes swept across the empty corridor, taking everything in. On his face was still that same gentle, scholarly expression, but his gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. He was checking his surroundings, making sure he wasn't walking right into a trap. Inside the surveillance room, it was dead silent. Everyone clenched their fists tight, terrified that making even the slightest sound would alert the man on the screen. Time seemed to stretch on forever. Every single second felt as long as a century. Finally, Tian Wenbo seemed satisfied that it was clear. He took a step forward and walked straight toward the lockers in the area. His target was extremely clear. Locker number 307. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. It wasn't an ordinary locker key, but a vintage-looking brass key. He slid the key into the keyhole of locker 307. Move. Xiao Wenjun's voice cracked like a collapsing glacier, exploding in everyone's ears, before the echo even faded. From both sides of the once empty corridor and behind the bookshelves, as well as the air vents in the ceiling, instantly, more than a dozen black figures dashed out. These were the top special agents of national security. They moved like ghosts born from the shadows, absolutely silent, yet fast as lightning. A specially designed electromagnetic pulse net dropped from above, completely trapping Tian Wenbo. Multiple pitch-black gun barrels surrounded him from all directions, aiming right at his head. From the moment the command was given until the target was fully subdued, the entire process took less than half a second. Tian Wenbo didn't even have time to finish turning the key. The expression on his face completely froze. That gentle, scholarly mask of his shattered to pieces in that very instant. Instead, there was extreme shock and a sense of utter collapse. Instead, there was extreme shock and a hint of an eerie smile. Yes, he was smiling. With over a dozen guns pointed at his head, he was actually smiling. Xiao Wenjun and I had already led our team, rushing out from the stairwell. Tian Wenbo, you're under arrest. Xiao Wenjun aimed her gun, glaring dead at him, but Tian Wenbo didn't even look at her. His gaze cut right through the crowd and landed straight on my face. His eyes were so strange. No anger, no fear, only a kind of playful look, like a hunter spotting its prey. A look of pure amusement. So, you are the guy from customs. He finally spoke, his voice completely different from its earlier warmth. It was hoarse, deep, grating like metal scraping on metal. Was it you who saw right through the originium? I didn't answer, just stared at him coldly. Impressive. He actually nodded, almost as if praising me. I never expected that in this country, aside from the gatekeepers, those old fossils, there would be someone with eyes like yours. It seems, the Ark's intelligence network is in desperate need of an update. Take him away, Xiao Wenjun barked out. 2 special ops members immediately stepped up and slapped special handcuffs on him. Search him. Another squad moved in to pat him down and ripped open locker number 37. But inside, it was totally empty, nothing at all, and the stuff they pulled off Qian Wenbo was ridiculously basic. A wallet, holding a few bank cards and a bit of cash, an ancient Nokia brick phone with 0 smart features, and that German copy of Faust. No weapons, no poison, no codebooks. He was clean, too clean for a secret agent. Take him to the interrogation room. Xiao Wenjun waved her hand as Qian Wenbo was dragged past. Right by my side, he suddenly stopped in his tracks, tilted his head and leaned right into my ear. He whispered something, in a voice so low, only the 2 of us could hear it. He said, when you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. Welcome to the real world. With that, he just smiled. As the SWAT officers shoved him forward, my back was instantly drenched in a cold sweat. He kept walking forward, and my back was instantly drenched in a cold sweat all over again. A bone-piercing chill shot straight from the soles of my feet right up to my skull. This guy knew I was here. He wasn't here for a rendezvous. From the very second he walked into that library, his target might have been me all along. This was a trap set specifically for me. A death trap. Watch out. I snapped back to reality and screamed at the SWAT officers. But it was already too late. Just as Qian Wenbo was about to be shoved into the elevator, his neck twisted at an angle that shouldn't be humanly possible. He violently jerked it. Crack. A sickening, crisp snap of bone. He actually snapped his own neck. His body just went completely limp and collapsed. And on his face, he still wore that twisted, victorious smile. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Everyone was left absolutely paralyzed by the sudden horror of it all. He's dead. Our only clue. Just committed suicide right in front of all of us. And he did it with such ruthless determination. In such an unimaginably bizarre way. The entire room fell into a dead silence. No. Xiao Wenjun stared at Qian Wenbo's corpse, her face deathly pale. Quick, check that book. I suddenly remembered something and lunged forward. I snatched the evidence bag and pulled out that copy of Faust. I frantically flipped through the pages. There were no hidden compartments in the pages. No secret markings at all. It was just an ordinary, mass-produced printed book. But, when I flipped to the very last page, my pupils violently constricted. Right at the bottom of the copyright page, just beneath the publication date, there was a line written in pencil. So incredibly faint, it looked like it had almost been erased completely. A faint string of numbers. It wasn't a page number. And it wasn't a barcode either. It was a set of coordinates. Geographic coordinates of latitude and longitude. Coordinates. A geographic coordinate, north latitude, XX degrees. East longitude, YY degrees. I picked up that copy of Faust and showed it to Xiao Wenjun. Her eyes landed on that string of numbers. Her gaze suddenly tightened. Track it. She spun around and barked at the technicians in the monitoring room. Pinpoint these coordinates for me, right now. The tech team frantically began typing. The large screen on the wall instantly switched to a massive satellite map. A flashing red dot appeared on the map. Xiao Wenjun walked up to the screen, staring intently at the red dot. Where is this? Her voice carried a trace of uncontrollable trembling. The technician quickly zoomed in on the map. The red dot was located on the outskirts of the capital, amid a continuous mountain range. Team leader, the coordinates are at the Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. The technician's voice had also become unusually tense. Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. Zhang Lei muttered to himself. His face instantly turned deathly pale. Xiao Wenjun's body suddenly swayed. She had to grab the table just to steady herself. Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. Her eyes were locked onto that red dot on the map, as if trying to pierce right through it. Isn't that a secret research base that was abandoned 10 years ago? Her voice sounded like it came from an icy void. Why would the coordinates point there? The entire monitoring room plunged into a dead silence once again. Everyone was so shocked by this sudden discovery that they were completely speechless. The Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. This name, to the insiders of the Ministry of State Security. What did it mean? It meant taboo. It meant dust-covered secrets. It meant the nation's highest level of top-secret experiments. 10 years ago, that base, due to a sudden, unexpected accident, was shut down immediately and publicly declared completely abandoned. All related documents were classified as top national secrets, sealed away permanently. It was something that couldn't even be mentioned. And now, the clue left behind by Qian Wenbo right before his death actually pointed right there. Kunlun Mountain. I looked at the map on the large screen, at that red dot surrounded by mountains. My intuition told me that things were far more complex than we had ever imagined. Zhuang Hai, Xiao Wenjun suddenly turned around. That red dot, surrounded by the mountains. My gut is telling me, this is way more complicated than we ever imagined. Zhuang Hai, Xiao Wenjun suddenly turned back to look right at me. Her eyes grew sharp again. But this time, there was no suspicion. Only pure trust. Do you remember that mission 3 years ago where your mentor, Lin Haidong, was killed? The intercepted, new contraband from that op? Where did the report say it came from? My heart skipped a beat. The official report said the shipment was intercepted through a covert overseas channel. But, during the internal briefing, Master Lin told us that based on the scattered clues they tracked down, the ultimate destination for that cargo pointed to a secret lab located near the Kunlun Mountains. The moment I said that, Xiao Wenjun's face completely drained of color. She grabbed her comms unit. Headquarters, emergency report. This is Xiao Wenjun, leader of Operation Cornerstone. Requesting immediate activation of the highest level emergency response protocol. Target, Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. What Qian Wenbo left behind isn't just an ordinary set of coordinates. He left us a Pandora's box. Hurry, get the Air Force Command Center on the line right now. I need a chopper. Now, I mean right this second. And deploy the nearest special ops unit. Lock down a full perimeter around the Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. Nobody goes in or out. All top-secret files related to that facility must be declassified immediately and sent straight to my encrypted terminal. Yes, ma'am. The comms channel crackled with an urgent, rapid response. The entire Ministry of National Security was kicked into overdrive at this exact moment. Xiao Wenjun killed the connection, staring at me with ice-cold eyes. Zhuang Hai, we might be dragged into a conspiracy way beyond anything we could have ever imagined. Qian Wenbo's death isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Her eyes flicked back to the massive screen. To that blinking red dot. Right there. It felt like some invisible force was waking up. 10 minutes later, a military chopper touched down on the rooftop helipad of the National Digital Library. The deafening roar of the rotors was absolutely ear-shattering. A military chopper landing on the rooftop helipad of the National Digital Library. The massive roar of the rotors was absolutely deafening. Xiao Wenjun and I, along with Zhang Lei, climbed aboard the helicopter. The cabin doors slammed shut, and the chopper lifted off the ground. Soaring straight into the clouds, under the cover of night, it looked like a giant steel bird of prey, racing toward the outskirts of the capital. Heading straight for the Kunlun Mountains. The night wind was howling. I sat in the cabin, watching the fading city lights blur past below us, but my heart was only growing heavier. Those last words Qian Wenbo said right before he died. They just kept echoing in my ears. When you stare into the abyss stares right back at you. Welcome to the real world. What the hell was actually hiding out there? The Kunlun Mountain Biological Research Center. The Originium, my master's death. How in the world did all of this connect? I took a deep breath, clenching my fists tight. No matter what was waiting for us ahead, I was going to dig it all up, completely, and drag it into the light. The chopper sped through the dark. About 40 minutes later, we arrived directly above the Kunlun Mountain Biological Research Center. Looking down from the sky, it was a massive complex totally surrounded by mountains. The main structure was this gray, concrete fortress, and the perimeter was lined with towering walls, completely covered in barbed wire and security cameras. The entire base was hidden away by dense forests and jagged mountain peaks. Unless you specifically knew it was there, you'd never even suspect something was hiding in this place. The chopper touched down on a flat patch of ground just outside the base. The second we stepped off, a blast of damp, freezing mountain wind hit us right in the face. The ground area had already been completely secured by the Special Ops forces. Hundreds of heavily armed Special Ops soldiers moved like absolute ghosts, holding positions in every single corner around the base. Their captain was a lean guy right around 40 years old. His codename? Timber Wolf. He walked briskly up to Xiao Wenjun and gave a sharp, textbook salute. Reporting to Team Leader Xiao, the Wolf Fang Special Ops Unit has completed our deployment exactly as planned. Within a 1-kilometer radius, all suspicious targets have been completely cleared out. As for inside the base, no abnormalities detected so far. Special Ops has completed deployment as planned. Within a 1-kilometer radius, all suspicious targets are cleared. And inside the base, no abnormalities detected yet. Xiao Wenjun gave a firm nod. Excellent, let's move. Timber Wolf took the lead, guiding us straight toward the main gates of the base. The massive alloy doors were sealed completely shut. They were covered in thick rust, looking like it had been a solid 10 years since they'd last been opened. Xiao Wenjun pulled out an encrypted terminal. A few seconds later, the heavy alloy gate let out a muffled, rumbling sound. and slowly groaned open. A wave of freezing, damp, and musty air hit us right in the face. Inside was a pitch-black corridor. Staring deep into the passage, you couldn't see a single thing. It was like staring into an unknown abyss. Blue Wolf signaled 2 commandos to scout ahead. Guns raised, they clicked on their tactical flashlights. 2 intense beams of light slashed through the dark, lighting up the inside of the hallway. Inside, it was a ghost town. There was nothing but the walls, and a faded, peeling no entry warning sign. Move in. Xiao Wenjun waved her hand, and our squad filed inside, one by one. The interior of the base was way bigger than it looked from the outside. Down both sides of the hall were rows of tightly sealed lab doors. Slapped across the doors were thick clusters of warning labels. Biohazard, high-risk experiment, unauthorized personnel, keep out, 10 years of total abandonment. Left this place reeking of absolute decay. Across the walls, and all over the pipes, everything was choked in a thick layer of dust. Moss had even started creeping across the floor. Report. One of the commandos suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, pointing at a heavy door on the left. This door looks like it's been pried. Xiao Wenjun quickly stepped up. That door actually looked a bit newer than the rest. Right around the lock, there were obvious signs of a forced entry. Blue Wolf gave the signal to breach. Boom. With a massive crash, the door was violently kicked open. Inside was a massive, sprawling lab. Right in the middle, a giant metal incubation tank stood there in dead silence. Sloshing inside the tank was some kind of amber liquid, and suspended in that fluid was a jagged, irregular object. A piece, exactly like the origin stone we seized at the airport. Shockingly similar, suspended in the liquid, was that same jagged, irregular object. A piece, exactly like the origin stone we seized at the airport. Remarkably identical, but the origin stone inside this tank was massively bigger. It easily stood half as tall as a full-grown man. It looked exactly like a giant, pulsing, hideous tumor, just silently drifting in that glowing amber fluid, and all around it, connected to dense tubes and wires. These tubes and wires ultimately converge into a massive console. The screens on the console emit a faint, eerie green glow. On them are displayed all sorts of complex biological data and energy readings. Oh my god, this. What is this? Zhang Lei stared at the scene before him, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. The origin stone is actually alive? My eyes were deadlocked on that colossal origin stone suspended in the culture fluid. It wasn't static. Its surface was undergoing some sort of subtle, extremely slow writhing, as if it were breathing. Kanglang. Xiao Wenjun's face completely changed. Lock down this lab right now. No one is allowed near it. Immediately test the surrounding air, water, and soil. I need to know if there's any risk of a bio leak here. Kanglang immediately barked out the orders. Special forces quickly threw up a quarantine line. The hazmat testing squad immediately suited up in protective gear and pushed into the lab to run tests. Xiao Wenjun rushed to the console, her hands flying across the controls. Her encrypted terminal synced up with the main console. A massive flood of encrypted data began to transfer. Chief, a technician suddenly cried out in shock. The test results are in. The air, water, and soil are all completely normal, but he pointed a shaking finger at the scanner in his hand. Inside the lab, the energy spikes are incredibly violent. It's like a massive high-yield nuclear reactor, steadily pumping out power. A nuclear reactor? The origin stone can actually blast out the energy of a nuclear reactor? This is absolutely insane. Xiao Wenjun shot up from the console. The origin stone can actually blast out the energy of a nuclear reactor? This is absolutely insane. Xiao Wenjun shot up from the console. Her gaze locked onto that gigantic incubation tank once more. Her eyes were heavy with absolute dread. Qian Wenbo's target was this. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He didn't come to steal the 3 small origin stones. He came to activate this massive one. My mind instantly went totally blank. Activate it? Activate this colossal, living origin stone that packs the power of a nuclear reactor? What the hell is this thing? And right at that moment, on Xiao Wenjun's encrypted terminal, suddenly, a frantic beep 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 of an alarm rings out. She looks down, and her face instantly turns pale. Oh no, that coordinate Qian Wenbo left us isn't the final destination. It's just a key, meant to activate some specific device. Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center is just a signal relay station. The real destination is deeper down, in that restricted zone we've never dared to touch. Deeper down? Zhang Lei swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. His eyes are filled with absolute terror. But here, this is already the absolute limit of where we can go. Any deeper is the legendary restricted zone. They have the nation's highest level of security down there. Even the blueprints are completely classified. Xiao Wenjun completely ignores him. Her gaze locked dead onto the map on her encrypted terminal. A brand new, even more hidden coordinate is flashing right there. That coordinate is located deep underground, right beneath the Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center. Wolf, she snaps her head toward him. Mobilize all your demolition experts, right now. I need you to blow a hole straight through to that restricted zone, as fast as humanly possible. Wolf's face turns incredibly grim. Chief Shao, I'm afraid we can't do that. The security protocols down there are built to withstand a nuclear blast. Even with our Special Forces' most advanced explosives, it would take us at least 20 hours. Just to blast open a crack. 20 hours. Xiao Wenjun's eyes are filled with pure despair. We don't have that kind of time. 20 hours? Xiao Wenjun's eyes are filled with pure despair. We don't have that kind of time. Gao Yuan said, the rendezvous is at 3 p.m. today. Qian Wenbo showing up at the library at exactly 3 p.m. was specifically to stall us. To buy himself time, he triggered that coordinate, activating the origin stone here. His real goal was to trigger the restricted zone even deeper down. If I'm right this very second, the device inside that zone is already booting up. Her gaze snaps back to the massive origin stone suspended in the culture vat. The pulsing on its surface starts beating faster. The amber fluid around it starts giving off a faint, eerie purple glow. This massive origin stone, it's literally an energy converter itself. I suddenly spoke up. It's absorbing some kind of energy from the world around it. And then, using the coordinates Qian Wenbo left behind, it converts it into a specific signal. This signal will be used to activate the deeper parts of the Forbidden Zone. Qian Wenbo's goal wasn't to smuggle the small source stones out of here. Instead, he wanted to send something into the Forbidden Zone. My words made Xiao Wenjun's eyes suddenly light up. Exactly. She sharply clapped her hands together. You're absolutely right. Inside the Forbidden Zone, rumor has it, there's a mysterious object from outer space, discovered by our country years ago. That object was classified top secret and codenamed the God Cipher. Back then, simply because we couldn't decode it, they built the Kunlun Mountain Biological Science Research Center and launched secret research. Later on, because an uncontrollable accident occurred during the research, they had to abandon the facility. What Qian Wenbo called a gift from heaven. The God Cipher. He was talking about that thing. The ARC organization, they don't want the source stones. What they really want is this God Cipher. And these source stones are simply the startup energy blocks for the God Cipher. Gao Yuan was just the messenger. Qian Wenbo is the activator. Their true goal is to use the energy from these source stones to control, or even awaken the God Cipher deep within the Forbidden Zone. Xiao Wenjun's expression grew increasingly grim. Once the God Cipher, Xiao Wenjun's expression grew increasingly grim. Once the God Cipher is awakened, the consequences would be completely unimaginable. It could destroy absolutely everything we have. Kang Lang, tell me, is there any other way to get into the Forbidden Zone? Kang Lang thought for a moment. There is one. He lifted his head, looking straight at Xiao Wenjun. After the accident 10 years ago, to prevent uncontrollable mutations from happening inside the Forbidden Zone, we secretly designed an emergency self-destruct tunnel. If an uncontrollable situation ever arises inside, we can use this tunnel to directly inject high-energy matter and destroy it completely. But this tunnel is strictly a one-way trip. Whoever goes in, you can never come out again. And the inside of the tunnel is rigged with all sorts of bizarre mechanisms and deadly traps. We've never field tested it, and no one has actually ever walked through it. Xiao Wenjun's eyes instantly turned resolute. Take me there, Captain Xiao. Kang Lang and Zhang Lei cried out at the same time. You can't go. You're the head of the task force. You can't take this risk. Inside the restricted zone, the situation is completely unknown and extremely dangerous. I am the captain, Xiao Wenjun shouted sternly. Here, I am the only one with the highest clearance. Only I can disable all the alarms and security protocols. And only I can take you inside. Zhuang Hai, she suddenly looked right at me. You are coming with me. I need your intuition. I need your eyes. I didn't hesitate even for a second. All right, my answer was absolute and firm. I knew that right now. This was no longer just about me. This was for the country, for the nation, and for the safety of us all. In Kang Lang's eyes, a flash of respect appeared. He didn't say another word. He turned around, leading us toward another hidden corner deep inside the base. Over there stood an alloy door that looked absolutely no different from a normal wall. But as Xiao Wenjun operated her encrypted terminal, the alloy door slowly opened up again. Inside was a tunnel even deeper, pitch black, and colder than the last. Right at the entrance stood a red warning sign. On it were just 4 words: the living shall not enter. I took a deep breath and looked up at Xiao Wenjun. Her face was unusually calm. Let's go. She was the first To step into that path, the one leading straight into the restricted zone. The path of no return. I followed closely right behind her. Meanwhile, Zhang Lei and Canvlang led the rest of the special forces and stood guard at the tunnel entrance. Remember, right before the doors closed, Xiao Wenjun's voice echoed from the inside, no matter what happens, without my strict orders, absolutely no one is allowed to take even half a step near the restricted zone. Violators, kill on sight. The alloy doors slowly closed behind us. We were completely cut off in this unknown darkness. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and an increasingly overwhelming stench of death. So, this is the restricted zone. This is the real world Qian Wenbo was talking about. What exactly is waiting for us? Up ahead? Inside the corridor, it was dead silent. The alloy doors behind us completely severed all our ties to the outside world. The darkness, like thick, sticky ink, engulfed us from all sides. It was freezing and damp, carrying a strange stench of rusted metal mixed with dust. Xiao Wenjun turned on her tactical flashlight. A blinding beam of light pierced through the darkness that had been dead for 10 years. Wherever the light hit was a narrow, bottomless corridor. The walls weren't made of concrete, but some kind of never-before-seen metal gleaming with a dark silver luster. The surface was incredibly smooth, without a single seam. It was as if the entire tunnel was violently carved out of one giant, solid block of metal. This is the highest-grade military alloy from 10 years ago. Xiao Wenjun's voice, in this vast, empty tunnel, sounded somewhat hollow. In theory, it can withstand the impact of a small nuclear blast. As she spoke, she pulled a handgun from her waist and expertly flicked off the safety. Stay close to me. From this moment on, we are in combat readiness level 1. Any unidentified living thing can be treated as a hostile target. I nodded, pushing my senses to the absolute limit. My eyes had already adapted to the darkness here. Even without the flashlight, I could barely make out the surrounding outlines. My intuition was like a high-speed radar, scanning every single inch of space around us. The tunnel was long. We walked for about 5 minutes. Beneath our feet was metal flooring of the exact same material. Every step we took echoed with a sharp, lonely sound. Tap. This sound was the only melody in here. Suddenly, my heart tightened for absolutely no reason. An overwhelming sense of danger surged from straight ahead. Stop, I yelled instinctively, and grabbed Xiao Wenjun's arm. Her reaction was incredibly fast. The second I opened my mouth, she had already stopped dead in her tracks. Her gun pointed straight ahead, body tense as a drawn bow. What is it? She asked in a hushed voice. There's something up ahead. My voice was dry and raspy. I can't tell what it is, but it's incredibly dangerous. Xiao Wenjun swept her flashlight beam deeper into the darkness ahead, but at the end of the beam, the corridor was completely empty. Not a single thing looked out of place. Are you sure? I kept my eyes locked on the pitch-black space in front of us. As cold sweat broke out on my forehead, that overwhelming sense of dread was growing stronger by the second. It felt exactly like some invisible eye was staring dead at us from the shadows. Xiao Wenjun didn't question my judgment again. She reached into her tactical vest, pulled out a small glow stick, snapped it to light up. And then, with everything she had, she hurled it straight ahead. The glowing green stick traced a bright arc through the air, flying about 50 meters down the hall. Then, it hit the ground with a soft clatter. The exact second it touched the floor, all hell broke loose. Everything changed. The entire corridor ahead of us, from the mirror-smooth metal walls to the ceiling to the floor, instantly lit up with thousands of densely packed, blood-red beams of light. The beams crisscrossed and locked together, weaving into a massive, lethal, three-dimensional laser grid in less than a tenth of a second. The glow stick that had just landed was instantly sliced into a cloud of fine dust by the silent red lasers. It formed a massive, lethal, three-dimensional laser grid. The glow stick that had just hit the floor was instantly caught by the silent red lasers and vaporized into fine dust. Not even a wisp of smoke was left behind. Xiao Wenjun and I both gasped in sheer horror at the exact same time. My back was instantly drenched in cold sweat. If we had taken even one more step, we'd be in the exact same state as that glow stick right now. Nothing left but dust. An infrared-triggered laser grid. Xiao Wenjun's voice was shaking with lingering terror. This is a top-tier military defense system. Once it's tripped, nothing alive is getting through. She looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. How did you even sense that? Just pure instinct was the only answer I could give. The laser grid flared for about 3 seconds, and then vanished completely without a sound. The corridor ahead plunged back into pitch-black darkness as if nothing had ever happened. But we both knew the truth. That web of death is still right there, just waiting for the next person stupid enough to wander in. So, what now? I asked. A system like this, there has to be a pattern to how it works. Xiao Wenjun forced herself to calm down. It's either on a set timer, or it needs a specific passcode, and we don't have it. All we can do is wait for its power to drain. Or, find the brief window when it powers down. And so, we stood there in the pitch black, waiting in dead silence, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but that deadly web never showed up again. Weird. Xiao Wenjun frowned. Normal defense systems, to save power, usually run on a pulse cycle. They can't just stay on standby forever. Unless, it seemed like she realized something. Unless, the trigger mechanism isn't motion-based. She reached into her pocket again, and pulled something out. This time, it was a tiny metal ball. She didn't toss it. Instead, she set it gently, on the floor. Then, using her foot, she slowly nudged it forward. The metal ball glided across the smooth floor, rolling without a sound. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, absolutely nothing happened. Xiao Wenjun's expression. The metal ball glided across the smooth floor, rolling without a sound. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, absolutely nothing happened. Xiao Wenjun's expression grew completely grim. It's not infrared, and it's not vibration-based. So, what exactly is the trigger supposed to be? I stared at the little sphere rolling through the dark, and suddenly, a crazy thought flashed through my mind. Its sound. I blurted it out. The trigger. Its sound. That glow stick from earlier made a tiny click when it hit the ground. But this metal ball, it's completely solid. When it rolls, it's practically dead silent. Xiao Wenjun's eyes widened sharply. She clearly realized it too. She slowly raised her hand, and made a strict, hush gesture. Then, she pointed to her own throat, and pointed straight ahead. Her meaning was crystal clear. For the rest of the way, we had to stay absolutely silent. Not a single sound, not even our breathing or our heartbeats. It was an almost impossible mission, but we had absolutely no choice. We locked eyes, and saw a flicker of absolute resolve in each other's gaze. I took a deep breath, and then slowed my breathing down to the absolute minimum. My heartbeat slowed right down with it, like two ghosts, step by agonizing step. We stepped excruciatingly slowly, into that death-shrouded zone. Every single step felt like walking on the edge of a blade. All my focus was locked onto my footsteps and my breathing, terrified of making even the slightest sound. Time felt endlessly long in that moment. That short distance of 100 meters took us a solid 30 minutes to cross. When I finally stepped out of that zone, I realized that my combat suit was already completely soaked in sweat. We did it. We walked right out from under the Grim Reaper's scythe, but before the joy of surviving could even rush in, at the end of the corridor ahead of us, a door appeared. A partially open alloy door. Through the crack in the door, a faint. At the end of the corridor ahead of us, a door appeared. A partially open alloy door. Through the crack seeped a faint, deathly pale light. At the same time, an overwhelmingly thick, nauseating stench of blood drifted out from the crack. Xiao Wenjun and I exchanged a look. She gave a tactical hand signal. She takes the lead. Cover her. One on the left, one on the right. We hugged the wall, and slowly approached that door. My heart leapt right back into my throat. Xiao Wenjun suddenly kicked the door wide open, and then rolled and charged right inside. I followed right behind her, my gun pointed into the room. However, when we got a clear look at the scene inside, both of us were completely stunned. It was a massive, circular central control room. The size of it was as big as a full basketball court. On the surrounding walls were countless giant display screens, but right now, every single screen was pitch black. Only right in the middle of the room, on a high platform like an altar, an emergency light is on, giving off a pale, faint glow. The whole control room is a total mess. Desks and chairs are flipped over, documents scattered all over the floor. A thick layer of dust covers everything. It's as if time here was frozen 10 years ago, right at the moment the disaster hit. And the source of that intense, heavy stench of blood is right under that platform. Down there, lie over a dozen corpses. They are wearing white lab coats, already turned into dry, withered bones. But the way they died is unbelievably terrifying. Some bled from their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, as if they saw something totally horrifying right before they died. Some have their bodies twisted at a creepy angle, every bone completely shattered. And others had their chests pierced by some kind of sharp weapon, ripping a giant, gaping hole. The blood had long since dried into a dark brown crust, gluing them, and the freezing metal floor permanently stuck together. This is the scene of that accident from 10 years ago, a scene straight out of a living hell, stuck together. This is the scene of that accident from 10 years ago, a scene straight out of a living hell. They were all core researchers for the Kunlun Mountain project back then. Xiao Wenjun's voice carried a hint of suppressed, shaking emotion. She slowly walked toward those bodies, her eyes filled with sorrow and deep anger. My teacher, Professor Wu Zhongtian, was also one of the directors of this project back then. After the accident, he was listed as missing personnel. I've just never believed that he would die in a place like this. Her gaze searched over every single skeleton, as if trying to find that familiar figure. I didn't bother her. I stayed on high alert, keeping an eye on this creepy control room. My gut was telling me that this place is way more dangerous than that laser hallway from earlier. The danger here isn't physical. It's a kind of psychological, massive, overwhelming sense of pressure. It's as if the air itself. The air was thick with an invisible, deeply malicious energy, prying into our thoughts, eroding our willpower. My gaze slowly fell upon the raised platform. Right in the center, there was a massive, circular depression. Inside it, it was completely empty, but around the edges, I spotted some strange, purple crystals, just like the ones we intercepted at the airport. The originium, the glowing threads inside, were the exact same color. This is where the divine secret was kept. I muttered to myself, 10 years ago, this is where it disappeared. No, it didn't just disappear. Xiao Wenjun walked over. Her face was dreadfully pale. It was unleashed. She pointed at the researchers' corpses. Look at their wounds. They don't look like weapon marks. It's more like some kind of energy from the inside blew their bodies apart. She walked over to a skeleton and crouched down. The remains were locked in a twisted, agonizing pose. Both of his hands were gripping his skull in a death clinch, as if he was trying to crush his own head barehanded. Locked in an agonizing pose, both of his hands gripping his skull in a death clinch, as if he was trying to crush his own head barehanded. Xiao Wenjun pulled something out from between his skeletal fingers. A badly crushed, black voice recorder. He hesitantly pressed the play button. BZZZT. After a burst of piercing static, the recorder played a man's distorted, terrified screams. No, stop singing. Make it stop. Its song is poisonous. It's drilling right into my brain. After a blood-curdling, inhuman shriek, the recording abruptly died. Xiao Wenjun and I just stared at each other. A sudden chill crept up from my tailbone, shooting straight to the top of my skull. A song? What song? We've been standing right here, and aside from our own heartbeats, we haven't heard a single thing. Wait, no sound at all? I suddenly realized a deeply horrifying detail. Ever since we stepped into this control room, it's been way too quiet in here. No hum of machinery, no sound from the ventilation system. Even our own footsteps feel like they've been swallowed up by this dead silence. This place is a space of absolute, total silence. Buzz. The second I realized that, my brain was hit by a sharp, sudden agony. It felt like countless steel needles were piercing right through my temples all at once. An eerie, an utterly indescribable sound, without any warning whatsoever, echoed straight into the deepest part of my mind. It rang out. It wasn't something you could hear with your ears. It was a direct attack on my very psyche. A flood of information. It sounded like some chaotic, twisted melody, dripping with pure madness and malice. Some kind of otherworldly, demonic singing. Zhuang Hai. I could hear Xiao Wenjun crying out in panic, but I couldn't respond. My consciousness was being dragged down by that horrifying melody, being swallowed up so incredibly fast. All kinds of hallucinations started flashing before my eyes. I saw Gao Yuan's terrified face. I saw Qian Wenbo's creepy, twisted smile. And I saw Master Lin Haidong, lying dead in a pool of blood. Anger, grief, terror, every single negative emotion. I saw Qian Wenbo's twisted smile. I saw Master Lin Haidong, lying there in a pool of blood. Anger, grief, terror, every single negative emotion, at this very moment, was being amplified to infinity. My sanity was crumbling fast. I'm losing my mind. Wake up. Right when I was about to be swallowed by the darkness, a sharp, stinging slap smacked right across my face. The blinding pain jolted me back to my senses for a split second. I saw Xiao Wenjun's face, filled with absolute panic and worry. From the corner of her mouth trickled a thin line of fresh blood. Her lips were trembling uncontrollably. It was obvious she was also bearing the brunt of that song's mental attack, but her sheer willpower was so much stronger than mine. She actually bit down hard on her own tongue, just to stay awake. Block it out. She looked at me, and using every ounce of strength she had left, she roared, do not listen to it. Hold on to your mind. It's a psychic attack. I gritted my teeth. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I tried to focus all my attention on the pain, using it to fight off that piercing singing, but it was no use. That singing grew clearer and more chaotic. My vision started to blur. I knew I couldn't hold on much longer. But right then, on my chest, the thing I always kept close, the relic from my master, Lin Haidong, An ordinary customs badge. Suddenly, it gave off a faint, warm energy. This energy, like a clear spring, instantly washed over my whole body, rushing into my mind. That chaotic, maddening singing faded against this warm energy like it had met its match, and quickly vanished. My mind cleared up. The intense pain faded away with it. Gasped heavily for air, my whole body drenched in sweat. You're okay? Xiao Wenjun looked at me. I gasped heavily for air, my whole body drenched in sweat. You're okay? Xiao Wenjun looked at me, her eyes full of total disbelief. I nodded, leaning against the wall to steady myself. I looked down at the badge on my chest. Right now, it was glowing with a faint, almost invisible golden light. It saved me. What is that? Xiao Wenjun noticed the glowing badge too. My master's relic, I replied. I have no idea why it's glowing, but it looks like it can block out that psychic attack. Xiao Wenjun's eyes grew incredibly complex. She stared at the badge, and then at me. It was like she was trying to dig up some secret out of me. But right then, a massive rumble. The entire central control room suddenly shook violently. On the walls, those pitch-black screens, all at once. To my absolute shock, all of them suddenly lit up, and on the screens, what appeared wasn't data. It wasn't security footage either, but an eye. A massive, covered in countless glowing purple veins, terrifyingly bizarre eye. That eye slowly rolled around, until its pupil, finally, locked right onto me and Xiao Wenjun. A freezing cold, completely emotionless, synthetic voice echoed through the entire control room. Warning, unknown life forms detected. High-level access key detected. Project ARC. Phase 2, initiated. Target, eliminate. Protocol, purify. Project ARC? Xiao Wenjun's face instantly drained of all color. Jian Wenbo's organization, they actually took control of this place? Before she could even finish her sentence, up on the high platform, the bottom of that perfectly empty circular groove slowly split open. A cylindrical lift, forged from some unknown metal, rose up from the depths below. Resting on that lift was an object. It was formed by countless irregular. A lift forged from an unknown metal, from down below. It rose up, and resting on that lift was an object. It was a massive cluster of irregular crystals, shimmering with a purple glow, pieced together into a colossal, irregular sphere. It was about the size of a small car, and its surface was covered in countless, eye-like, deep, dark vortexes. Those swirling vortexes just kept slowly turning, radiating a genuinely terrifying aura of pure evil, the key of the gods. I stared at that colossal sphere, my throat suddenly going dry. So this is it, the ultimate secret the nation spent 10 years searching for, and 10 long years hiding. An ominous artifact, straight from outer space. It is the source of absolutely everything. The source. The massive sphere lets out a deep roar. The shaking of the entire control room gets even more violent. Massive cracks start splitting open across the surrounding walls. Countless thick, tentacle-like, black metal cables from the cracks burst out. They're like a pack of awakened pythons, madly lunging right at us. Run! Xiao Wenjun roars, grabbing me, and finding console 7 as cover. Boom! Just as we dodge, a massive metal cable smashes viciously into where we were just standing. The hard alloy floor is instantly smashed into a giant crater. More cables close in on us from all directions. They're sealing off all our escape routes. Rat-a-tat-tat. Xiao Wenjun raises her pistol, aiming at the attacking cables, and fires wildly. The bullets hit the surface of the cables, sparking a flurry of sparks. But they only leave shallow white marks on them. They're not doing any real damage at all. It's useless, I scream. These things are the base's own defense system. Conventional weapons won't work on them. We have to find the control core and shut it down. The control core is right on that sphere. Xiao Wenjun gets what I mean too, but right now, we're pinned down hard behind this cover by these crazy metal tentacles. There's no way we can get near that high platform. Watching the encirclement getting smaller and smaller, there's absolutely no way we can get near that high platform. Watching the encirclement getting smaller and smaller, we're about to be taken by these metal tentacles and crushed into a pulp. Cover me, Xiao Wenjun suddenly yells at me. Buy me 3 seconds. With that said, she pulls out from her tactical vest the very last item, a thumb-sized, silver, diamond-shaped bomb, a high-energy fusion bomb. I recognize that thing. That's the Ministry of State Security's top-secret level special equipment. Its power is enough to blast through a 1-meter-thick steel plate, but its detonation time takes 3 seconds, and within these 3 seconds, she's gonna be a living target. No, it's too dangerous. I immediately shut the idea down. We don't have time. Xiao Wenjun's eyes were fiercely determined. This is our only way out. She didn't give me another chance to argue. With a quick roll, she dashed out from behind our cover. Now, I roared at the top of my lungs, and unloaded every single bullet left in my gun. But I wasn't aiming at those cables. I was aiming right at the ceiling above them. My bullets ripped through the aging wiring and pipes. Instantly, a massive burst of sparks and steam erupted. For a brief moment, the entire control room was swallowed by thick smoke and blinding flashes of electricity. The line of sight of those metal cables was blocked off, just for a second, and in that precious split second, Xiao Wenjun had already rushed beneath the high platform. She slammed the bomb's activation button. Then, with every last ounce of strength in her body, she hurled it straight at that massive purple sphere. Get down! She let out one final, desperate scream toward me, and then, her entire body was violently swatted away by a metal cable that snapped back into action. No, I screamed, my eyes burning with absolute horror. Could only watch helplessly as her body, like a fragile falling leaf, smashed hard against the far wall, and then slid limply down to the cold floor. I didn't know if she was dead or alive. Meanwhile, that silver bomb traced a desperate arc through the air. I didn't know if she was dead or alive. Meanwhile, that silver bomb traced a desperate arc through the air, and stuck perfectly onto the surface of that massive sphere. Time felt like it had completely frozen in this exact moment. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Boom! A massive, earth-shattering explosion ripped right through my eardrums. Before my very eyes, the entire world turned into a blinding field of pure white. A terrifying shockwave instantly swallowed the whole control room. I felt like I had just been slammed head-on by a speeding train. My body was violently tossed high, up into the air, and then hitting the ground, hard. My consciousness, drowning in agony and a deafening roar, was rapidly fading away. Right before completely blacking out, I thought I saw that massive, purple sphere, sitting right in the heart of the explosion. It wasn't destroyed. Only, its surface had been cracked open. A surge of something darker than the abyss, purer than the cosmos. That purple and black energy, pouring from the fissure, was slowly bleeding out. The very last thing I saw in this world was that eye, filling up the entire screen. That colossal eye, deep within its pupil, flashed a flicker of something almost human. A mocking, sickening smile. And then, everything faded to black. I have no idea how long I was out. Maybe 1 minute, maybe a whole century. My mind, amidst a piercing roar and sheer agony, was violently yanked back into my body. I woke up. The whole world was spinning. My head felt like it had been smashed by a sledgehammer. Splitting with pain, inside my ears, was a relentless, high-pitched ringing. I tried to force my eyes open. Everything was a complete blur. Countless black spots danced wildly in my vision. I could taste the blood, salty and metallic. It was dripping down from my forehead, blinding my eyes, dancing wildly in my vision. I could taste the blood again, salty and metallic. It dripped from my forehead, completely blinding me. I raised my hand, trying to wipe the blood off my face, only to realize my arm felt as heavy as lead. Every single little movement pulled at every muscle in my body, bringing a gut-wrenching agony. I pushed against the ground, struggling, desperately trying to sit up. I failed, over and over again. Finally, leaning against a flipped piece of scrap metal, I barely managed to prop my upper body up. My vision, finally, slowly, started to clear up, and then, I finally saw what lay before me. Hell on earth. Those words, once again, flashing before my eyes. The entire control room had been completely reduced to ruins. The console we were hiding behind was torn to shreds by the shockwave. Up on the ceiling, those twisted metal cables, looking like dead giant pythons, hung down lifelessly. At their severed ends, dangerous electric sparks were still crackling. The massive screens on the walls were completely shattered, leaving everything pitch black. In the air, the pungent stench of gunpowder lingered, mixed with the sickening smell of scorched protein. The sheer power of the high-energy fusion bomb was way beyond my imagination. It practically destroyed everything here. My eyes pierced through the thick smoke and dust, locking onto that high platform. The platform was still there, and on top of that platform, that massive, irregular purple sphere was still there too. It hovered there in dead silence. On its surface was a hideous new crack, but it was not destroyed. The pure, purplish black energy that had been bleeding from the cracks earlier had completely vanished. It was like an opened Pandora's box. The disaster inside had already been unleashed, while the box itself returned to a deathly silence. My heart sank heavily. Xiao Wenjun, I suddenly thought of her. The one who, just a second ago, yet returned to a deathly silence. My heart sank heavily. Xiao Wenjun, I suddenly thought of her. The woman who, just a split second ago, was violently whipped away by the metal cables. Like a madman, in the middle of the ruins, I frantically started searching for her. Xiao Wenjun. I screamed her name until my voice went hoarse. My voice, in that vast and dead control room, sounded so incredibly weak. So utterly powerless. Xiao Wenjun, answer me. But nobody answered, only my own echo, between the cold metal walls. Bounced back and forth. Fear, like an icy hand, gripped my heart tightly. Is she dead? Just to protect me. Just to finish the mission. Is she dead? No, I don't believe it. Fighting through the agonizing pain all over my body, on my hands and knees. I crawled through the rubble. Piece by piece, I shoved aside the heavy shards of metal. My fingers were sliced bloody by the sharp edges. But I couldn't feel the pain. I only had one thought. Find her. I have to find her. Alive or dead. I had to see her with my own eyes. Finally, behind a pile of collapsed server racks, I found her. She lay there so quietly, her body covered in dust and rubble. Her face was as pale as paper, without a single drop of color. A trail of dark red blood hung from the corner of her mouth. Her combat suit was slashed open in several places. Blood had completely soaked through her clothes. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't moving. It looked like she wasn't even breathing anymore. My mind just started ringing and went completely blank. Time seemed to just stop right there. I reached out, my hand trembling, to feel for her breath. Cold. She was freezing cold. My world completely shattered in an instant. Freezing cold. My whole world crumbled right then, but just as despair was about to swallow me whole, my fingertips seemed to catch a tiny, incredibly faint, almost imperceptible breath of air. It was so weak, but it was really there. She's still alive. She's still breathing. Pure joy, like a bursting dam, instantly washed away all the agony and despair. I carefully pushed the rubble off of her and pulled her out. From the wreckage, her body was so light and so cold. I pressed my ear right against her chest. I heard it. I heard that faint, yet incredibly stubborn heartbeat, beat after beat, like a dying butterfly struggling with everything it had to flap its wings. I quickly checked her injuries. They were severe. Her left arm was bent at a twisted angle, definitely broken. Her back had a massive bruise. She must have taken a brutal hit. Her organs might be damaged, but the most fatal part was the gash on her forehead. A cut so deep you could see the bone. Blood just kept oozing out, non-stop. I had to stop the bleeding, fast. I ripped off my only clean sleeve. I pressed down hard on her wound, but it was no use. The blood quickly soaked right through the fabric. If this kept up, she was going to bleed to death. What should I do? We didn't have any medical equipment here. We were trapped in this isolated hellhole. Watching her face grow paler and paler from the blood loss, my heart completely shattered. Just then, right on my chest, the customs badge that belonged to my master, Lin Haidong, once again gave off a faint, warm energy, almost as if possessed. I took the badge off and brought it over, gently placing it right over the wound on Xiao Wenjun's forehead. And then, a miracle happened. The second that cold metal badge touched her wound, it actually started radiating a soft, golden halo. It radiated a soft, golden glow. That light enveloped her wound, as if it had a life of its own. The blood that had been pouring out just seconds ago was slowly stopping, right before my eyes. The bleeding stopped, and the torn flesh around the wound even started to, slowly, stitch itself back together and heal. I was so stunned by this unbelievable sight, I couldn't even speak. This badge, what the hell is it? Not only could it block mental attacks, but it could actually heal physical wounds too. Master, what kind of incomprehensible secret did you leave behind for me? But I didn't have time to dwell on it. All I knew was, Xiao Wenjun was safe for now. I let out a huge sigh of relief. My whole body just collapsed onto the floor, completely drained. The sheer exhaustion of just barely surviving washed over me like a tidal wave. I leaned back against the wall, panting, gasping for air, but right at that moment, I caught something out of the corner of my eye, on the other side of the control room. Those researchers, who had been dead for 10 years, their skeletons, they moved. It wasn't a hallucination. I saw it clear as day. Scattered around the platform, those dozen or so eerie white skeletons, they were moving in an incredibly slow, incredibly terrifying way, slightly twitching, almost as if some invisible force was pulling them from the slumber of death and waking them up. My blood instantly ran cold, a chill even worse than when we faced those metal tentacles. A far more intense chill shot up from the soles of my feet, straight to the top of my skull. Instinctively, I shielded the unconscious Xiao Wenjun behind my back. I raised my gun, aiming right at those mutating skeletons. But my hands, they were uncontrollably shaking violently. Just what was I looking at? I saw those once dried up, brown bloodstains, in that very moment, somehow becoming fresh again. In that very moment, they somehow came back to life. They looked like tiny, purplish black vipers, slithering up from the floor and boring right back into the bodies of those skeletons. That was from the divine secret, leaking out from the cracks. that ominous energy, it didn't disappear, it merely found new hosts. A sickening, bone-grinding screech echoed through the dead silent control room. Those skeletons lying on the floor, their bones, were being forcibly reassembled, spliced together. They were slowly standing up. No, that wasn't standing. Their bodies, in a way that completely defied human anatomy, were twisted into grotesque postures, lifted by that purplish-black energy, and forcibly propped up. Something started growing on their bodies, something shimmering with an eerie purple glow. Translucent, these crystals sprouted from the gaps in their bones like greedy, parasitic vines, frantically devouring their skeletons, their flesh and their tattered clothes. And then, at a horrifying speed, they multiplied, they spread. In just a few dozen seconds, those skeletons had completely transformed. They were no longer in human form. Instead, they turned into bizarre, grotesquely shaped things made of purple crystal. Humanoid monsters. Their bodies, it had this eerie, semi-transparent texture. Through that crystal shell, you could even see the dark purple energy slowly flowing inside. Their heads had absolutely no faces, just a smooth, mirror-like crystal surface. They had no weapons, they didn't even make a single sound. They just stood there, in dead silence. Over a dozen pairs of non-existent eyes, just standing there. Over a dozen pairs of non-existent eyes, all turning at once, right toward Xiao Wenjun and me. In that moment, I felt like my very soul was frozen solid. What I was facing wasn't any known, comprehensible enemy anymore, but something entirely beyond human understanding. A pure, abyssal terror. They were looking at us. They were examining us. They were judging us. This was so much worse than any frantic roaring or attacking. It just made you feel completely hopeless. Right then, Xiao Wenjun, who was in my arms, let out a painful groan. She woke up. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and then, slowly, she opened her eyes. At first, her gaze was a bit dazed and empty, but when she saw what was in front of us, for the very first time, her usually ice-cold, calm eyes revealed an undisguisable horror. What the hell are those things? Her voice was hoarse, weak, and full of disbelief. Don't move. I held her down as she struggled to get up. It's the energy from the God Code. It corrupted those corpses. Xiao Wenjun's body shuddered violently. She obviously understood what this meant. Project Arc, Phase 2. She muttered to herself. Purification, eradication. So, this is what they meant by purification. They're going to turn this place into their nest. Her words sent shivers down my spine. A nest? Wait, could it be? These crystal monsters, are they the Arc Organization's attempt at creating a brand new species? Crystal life forms made entirely out of that pure, evil energy. Right as we were talking, those crystal monsters started moving again. One of them, the one closest to us, slowly raised its arm. You couldn't even call it an arm anymore. It was a jagged cluster pieced together from countless purple crystals, gleaming with a sharp, icy light. Jagged cluster pieced together from countless purple crystals, gleaming with a sharp, icy light. A crystal cluster. It pointed right at us, and then, its body started melting, like a wax figure under intense heat. Its body quickly turned into a pool of purple, thick, gooey liquid. That puddle was spreading rapidly across the floor, spreading out as if it were alive, oozing right toward us. Its goal wasn't to attack us, but to transform us. It wanted to turn us into monsters just like them. Let's go. I didn't have time to think. I hoisted the weakened Xiao Wenjun onto my back and ran. My brain was working in overdrive. The exit was completely blocked. This place had turned into a hopeless, sealed-off cage. Where else could we go? The map. The control room's map. My eyes scanned the destroyed consoles. Most of them were already reduced to scrap metal. But over in the corner, there was an emergency backup terminal built into the wall. Its screen was still on. Carrying Xiao Wenjun on my back, I used every ounce of my strength and dashed over to it. I gently set her down, keeping my gun raised with one hand to stay on guard while my other hand frantically tapped away on that dusty touchscreen, trying to pull up the base's structural blueprint. Faster. Come on, a little faster. That pool of purple liquid is already less than 10 meters away from us. I can even smell that sickeningly sweet, rotting stench it's giving off. Finally, the 3D map of the base is up on the screen. This place is way more complicated than I ever imagined. Aside from the control room we're in right now, down below, there are 5 whole floors of massive experimental zones, an energy sector, and an ecological simulation zone.